Hare I have to tell you all something. So Yashoda Dulal Prabhu is speaking on Krishna's lotus feet, and literally right as Sid finished the kirtan, Krishna's ankle ball moved.
Oh,
Jari will need to put it back in its proper position, but I just think that's like really Muralidhar, like that's clearly Muralidhar being like, wow, you guys are talking about my lotus feet, look at it. So I think that is so auspicious. And I think it's super auspicious because I think the Lord is so happy that Yashoda Dulal Prabhu is speaking today. We've been waiting. He's a very busy man. He is on the executive team here at Bhakti Center and also the board of, if you could just hold for 1 minute. We'll do questions later on.
Oh, I just want to know what auspicious means.
Like very good, very good fortune, good fortune.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's also on the board of the directors of Bhakti Center and does an incredible amount of service here for Bhakti Center for a very long time. And to tell you a little bit more about him, he's actually served here as part of Bhakti Center since 2000 and has served in different capacities over the years. And yeah, not only is he on the board of directors, but he's actually the president of the board of directors. And him and his beautiful wife, Shri Radhika, who is also the best cook in the whole world, and has so much devotion and so many amazing loving qualities and serves her husband so beautifully and has a beautiful home and beautiful deities. Their deities actually used to be on the altar here. They're Gauranitai deities. And both him and his wife are mentors and friends with so many in the community. They're actually official mentors on our mentorship board, and they provided shelter to people like me, and also serve in the New Jersey ISKCON communities, especially the Tawako community. And he also worked professionally in an insurance company in the field of finance, where he tries to share about Krishna Bhakti in a manner which is appropriate for a corporate setting. I know one of the things he does is takes prasadam and share that made by beautiful Shri Radhika to share with the people in his office. So he also, the last thing that I know personally is he has an extremely deep love for Shastra. Both him and his wife are always chanting, reading Shastra, hearing, discussing Shastra, and I know that they also very much enjoy nature and nature walks, and Yashoda Dulal records and posts all the programs on the Facebook. Please come, Prabhu. Yes, of course.
Can you hear?
We can
Yeah, at the
move
back.
the microphone a little bit higher.
Yeah, a little bit closer.
There you go. Now it should be good. Try.
Is this better?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds better. Except now I can't see my own screen.
You have to like this.
Let's chant with an invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today's topic is the Lord's lotus feet, and we will actually dive into various aspects of that during the rest of this presentation. Before we begin, let's chant the invocation. If you know the words, you can chant with me. Om Jnana Tirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Jutam Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathantam Sam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Desha Sarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. These lotus feet of Sri Krishna, Sri Muralidhar, and Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Gaurachandra, are so beautiful that I really don't feel like going past the screen. Maybe just stare at them all day long, yeah? But we have a talk to do on the Lord's lotus feet, so let's dive in, okay?
It's working. Yes.
Maybe it's the surface.
Space to now. Let's see. 1 second, maybe. Because there is a lot there. Maybe we need to go to my back.
Can you use this instead?
Yeah, I'm trying, but it's frozen.
I see.
So if we unplug, leave a space on our little table.
Oh, maybe. That's a good idea.
Get it to the right screen.
Yeah, it's totally frozen. You want to connect it to yours?
Oh,
Yeah.
this help?
Hmm?
Want to try this one on this?
We could, except I think it's the laptop that's frozen.
Maybe switch off and put it on again.
Try Pookie if I can, if that doesn't work, we can use mine.
I just switched it off altogether. The nuclear option.
Nuclear.
Better.
I'll get mine ready.
Give me that a try.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get
I
it.
put it here. Thank you. This laptop is quick, so it'll come back up quickly. Yeah, jump it just as a backup in case.
When it's Windows, Microsoft, I always make a prayer for the computer before I start using it.
You know, we offered a prayer to the devotees, the gurus, and to Krishna, but we didn't offer a prayer to the laptop. So maybe that's from ours.
That's all be alright.
I mean, it's Krishna too, it's Balaram.
Yeah.
No. It's correct.
Okay, let's come back on and Krishna and Devi.
It's coming back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill Gates. Thank you, Bill Gates. Thank you, Bill Gates.
Collective prayers.
I have mine ready if needed.
Okay, hopefully Okay. Haribol. It just chose this moment to actually freeze. So, we see that Shastra or scripture is full of references to the Lord's lotus feet. Yeah? We constantly talk about it taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, and we keep hearing about how the Lord's lotus feet are so sweet. And I'm not going to go through the examples right now, but we'll come back to these if we have time at the end. And so there's a few examples, and literally, if you Google Lord's lotus feet on database, you'll come up with like a couple of 100,000 hits. So it's not, I'm just giving like 5 or 10 examples here. Krishna stealing butter, and the gopis are wincing when they're thinking of Krishna walking through the forest barefoot and his feet are getting pricked by thorns. Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kali and the serpent. Vamanadev's 3 steps, right, in which he covers not just the whole universe in 2 steps. And then he's like, where do I put the 3rd step? And Bali Maharaj says, put your lotus feet on my head. Thank you. Gopis praying to have Krishna's lotus feet in their hearts. Then baby Krishna on a banyan leaf sucking his toe, we'll come back to that. Lord Ram bringing Ahalya back to life. Ram stepping on Virada the demon, and out comes Tumbura the Gandharva, a demigod. And then Lord Nityananda from Chaitanya Leela placing his feet on the head of Raghunath Das Goswami. So there's a few examples that we can meditate on as we go through this. But I want to first establish the Shastric or scriptural reference to what is lotus feet. So why are the Lord's feet called lotus feet? Has it ever occurred to you, like to ask? Yeah?
I mean, my guess is, I'm new at this. My guess is, from what I heard about the lotus is able to grow from like mud, and it's a beautiful flower. And it's a very delicate flower, so I guess the lotus feet would be that he's so graceful, he's able to stand on the lotus without, I guess, like crushing it.
Mm-hmm. Very beautiful. And also in the middle of all the muck, of the material world, full of envy, greed, lust, right? Dangers. The Lord's feet always stand above, just as the lotus stands above all the, it grows in really mucky water, but the lotus is always untouched. So the Lord's lotus feet are untouched. So there is a specific verse, 16th chapter of the first canto of Bhagavatam, 6th verse. The devotees of the Lord are accustomed to licking up the honey available from the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the use of topics which simply waste one's valuable life? That is basically topics about anything other than Krishna. Because we may get temporary pleasure from those topics, but they actually are a complete waste of time because they are temporary, and when our body is gone, those topics and the time we've spent on them is gone. But anything spent on devotional service remains with us and goes to our next destination. Yeah? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, so that's a lotus up there, and you can see the petals and the whorl of the lotus, right, the center part. Srila Prabhupada writes, the spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan, the eternal abode of Lord Krishna, is shaped like the whorl of a lotus flower. Even when the Lord descends to any of the mundane planets, he does so by manifesting his own abode as it is. Thus, his feet always remain on the same big whorl of the lotus flower. His feet are also as beautiful as the lotus flower, and therefore it is said that Lord Krishna has lotus feet. Good? And then the other explanation we talked about, that they are always above the mundane, the yuckiness or the muckiness of all mundane worlds. That's another explanation. Very nice.
That's right.
Okay, but why his lotus feet? Why don't we say, let's worship his lotus hands, his lotus eyes, his lotus arms, lotus face, right? We do. But why does scripture stress that we should approach his lotus feet, right? And so I wanted to show a pyramid where at the foundation is the quality of humility. In the middle is what is called Sharanagati or surrender. And at the top is Bhakti or devotional service. And what this pyramid is showing is that for us to have pure devotional service, you've got to have Sharanagati. And I'm actually going to delineate what are the 6 components of Sharanagati that the teachers tell us, the prior acharyas. But at the very foundation of Sharanagati is humility. Unless we have that quality, nothing else can work, right? And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he actually talks about the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. And Sri Nanda Kumar, who is Sri Nanda Kumar? Sri Nanda Kumar? Who's that? That is Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, right? So Nanda Kumar hears the prayers of whoever surrenders unto him in accordance with the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. And the first limb is humility, which is why I put that as the foundation or as the basis of this entire pyramid. Self-submission, it basically means that we submit ourselves to Krishna's pleasure, to Krishna's service. Embracing the Lord's guardianship, accepting the fact that He is Master and we are eternally servants, right? Lord Chaitanya tells us in Chaitanya Leela, Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas, that eternally the soul's identity, the soul is who we are, right? We are spirit soul, we're not the body. Eternally the identity of the spirit soul is that we are servant of Sri Krishna and of Sri Krishna's servants, right? So embracing the Lord's guardianship, so long as in our mind we feel somehow I am the master of something in my life, right? We are still not fully taking to the process of Sharanagati, because Sharanagati is the prerequisite for developing bhakti. The 4th limb of Sharanagati is having faith that Krishna will surely protect me. No matter what happens, I'm always protected by Krishna. Have you ever seen a small child, like a 2-year-old, for example, right? A 2-year-old just blithely, runs around, has absolutely no care in the world. It doesn't matter, he might be, trying to jump out from this window, and of course the parents are running after him to pull him back, right? But does he have any fear? No. And why does he not have the fear?
They don't understand.
Well, one is maybe he doesn't understand, but deep down, the real thing is that he actually feels, no matter what, my parents are going to protect me, right? So it doesn't matter, right? If I'm in the midst of danger, if I'm in the midst of something that is, not really great for me, I am protected by my parents. The child does not have any contract with his parents, right? Neither do the parents have a written contract with the child saying that I'm going to protect you. And these are the conditions, and if these conditions are broken, then I'm not going to protect you, right? Is that how the child-parent relationship works? No, right? It's implicit, and a child never ever doubts that I'm being protected by my parents. Similarly, a devotee who embraces Sharanagati or surrender has the faith that no matter what happens to me, I am protected by Krishna. And Krishna's protection can be a class in itself, like a whole seminar in itself, right? And we don't have time for that. But the protection is not always bodily protection. It doesn't always mean that I won't, suffer some bodily hurt, or I won't suffer, some injury. And, eventually I know that this body is going to die. So it's not like, Krishna is going to protect me from death in this spirit, in this body. What that protection really means is that Krishna will never ever destroy our ability and our desire to serve Him, remember Him, and worship Him. That's what protection is. Because that's real protection, right? Bodily protection, the body is temporary anyway. So whether it's, after 10 years, 30 years, 100 years, it's going to be destroyed. So that's not protection. Yes, Krishna sometimes protects the body of a devotee also. But that's not the only aspect of protection. The real protection is spiritual protection. 5th is engaging only in activities which are favorable to devotion. So I will give you an example. If you want to drink pure water, for example, right? And you have a cup of water, and you drink a half, and then you go to the nearest ditch. It's going to rain today, so we're going to have ditches full of water. You go to the nearest ditch, and you take some water and you put it into your clean glass. What will happen to that remaining half glass of water that's in there?
Contaminated.
It'll get contaminated, right? Similarly, our life, we may think, well, I come to the temple once a day or once a week or whatever, right? But the rest of the time I can do whatever I want, right? Yeah, you can do whatever you want because Krishna gives us all free will. But it's like that glass that's getting contaminated. So to the extent we do activities which are not favorable to our devotional service, to our bhakti, we are just going to make slower progress than we would like, right? If you have a recipe that someone gives you to make, cauliflower Manchurian, for example, and then you say, that cauliflower Manchurian has 7 ingredients, but I don't like one of the 7 ingredients, I'm just going to avoid that. Will it taste the same as the original recipe?
Nope.
It won't, right? So you need to follow the recipe, and this is the recipe that our previous teachers are giving us. And the last one is utterly rejecting everything that is unfavorable to devotion, right? So we accept only those activities, we do only those activities which are favorable to devotion, and we reject everything that is unfavorable to devotion, right? And these 6 limbs, actually they were expounded by Rupa Goswami, one of the greatest teachers in our line, and Thakur Bhaktivinoda, another very great teacher who came about 150 years ago. He expounded on them. And these 6 limbs are mentioned in the Vayu Purana, one of the 18 Puranas that come from time immemorial. So far, so good? Yeah? Okay. So I want to talk about the concept of humility or daimyata. Humility is something that in this world you don't see a lot of. Yeah? Most people stand up and say, look how great I am, right? Instagram is full of pictures of people showing off how beautiful they are, right? Do you have any pictures on Instagram saying, look how ugly I am, right? You don't, right? It's all about showing off how great I am, how beautiful I am, how everything about me is fantastic. It's all me, and me, right? So humility, one of the definitions I've heard from a teacher of mine, is not that we think ourselves less to be less, but we think of ourselves less. So we don't put ourselves in the center, we actually put God or Krishna in the center, right? So humility, we saw, is the foundational limb of Sharanagati. It means considering oneself lower than the object of worship. As long as we think that, yeah, Krishna is great, but I'm also a little great, right? And maybe there's a little difference between me and Krishna. I'm great, yeah, he's greater, but I'm also great, right? It's not humility, and we cannot properly worship. Because we can only worship someone we accept as being far superior to us. We cannot worship someone we think is slightly above us or on the same level as us. What to speak of if someone thinks I'm the same as God, or I am God, right? Or God is lower than me and I'm actually the best, right? Forget it, there's no worship there. Yeah? The second aspect of humility is considering oneself subservient to the said object of worship. So as long as we remember and realize that Krishna, I am subservient, meaning I am a servant of yours. You are the greatest. I am a very small and very insignificant jiva or living entity, right? That is part of humility. The third is putting the needs of the beloved ahead of one's own. So one of the things we have all as living entities done from time immemorial is we've only thought about ourselves. We rarely, if any time, think of God or of other people, right? And if we do think of God, it's in the context of God, please give me my daily bread. God, please give me my education. Give me a nice wife or a nice husband or a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, right? Give me money, right? It's not necessarily putting the needs of the beloved ahead of one's own. True humility means you always think of Krishna's needs and not our own needs. So one question that I used to wrestle with all the time in the beginning of my journey in bhakti is, well, shouldn't I sometimes think of my needs? Right? Because I'm in this world, I do have needs. I need to eat, sleep, right? Breathe, right? Have a proper house. And what the process of bhakti assures us, and you can experience it, you don't have to take my word or the teacher's word for it. What the process of bhakti assures us is, when we only think of satisfying Krishna, our own senses become satisfied. It's a very mystical process, right? We may think, how is that possible? But we can only experience it. It's kind of like, swimming lessons. If you take swimming lessons from a book, but you never get into the water, right, to actually try and swim, you're never going to learn what swimming is all about, right? So this process of bhakti, of putting Krishna's needs ahead of our own, has to be experienced. We have to do it to be able to actually experience what happens to our own happiness when we do that, right? And it may not be all of a sudden. It might take some doing, might take some twists and turns, but it will happen. The next point about humility is realizing Krishna's greatness and one's insignificance. See, we as living entities are really tiny. In Bhagavad Gita, it's given how tiny the living entity is. If you take a tip of hair, I don't have any hair, so I cannot show you. But if you take the tip of your hair, right? Parastu has very beautiful hair. So she just plucked one hair out, right? And that hair were to be split into 10,000 units. One of those 10,000 units is the size of the living entity. That's actually inside of us. That's who we are, not this body that covers that living entity. So when we realize that, okay, we read this description, then the second corollary is, we must also reflect on how great Krishna is, right? Not just that we are insignificant and we are very tiny. And, raise your hand if you've never felt that I am great. So I can't raise my hand because I feel sometimes I have felt in my life that, I'm like doing great things, or, this is not so bad, right? So we may be insignificant as living entities, but our egos are very big, right? But realizing Krishna's greatness and realizing one's insignificance, they go hand in hand together, right? And so you can't do one without the other, and that's why it's essential to hear about Krishna on a regular basis. Prabhupada says, Bhagavatam says, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam means every day. It doesn't mean we have to spend 3 hours, 4 hours a day. Sure, if you can spend that time, great. But Prabhupada writes in the preface to the Bhagavatam that this book is meant to be read sequentially from start to finish, and there are 12 cantos, right? There's a library at the back, you can see the Bhagavatam, and it's meant to be read in small installments, because every day some connection with the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita keeps our battery charged. We charge our phone every day, don't we? Like every single day. Like, do we ever have a day where the phone is not charged? Right? I don't care how good your battery is, you have to charge your phone once a day. Mm-hmm. But we leave our soul unnourished when we sometimes say, I'm too busy, I'm not going to listen to Bhagavatam today, or I'm not going to read it. But it's actually detrimental to us. It's not detrimental to anyone else, right? And so realizing Krishna's greatness only comes when we hear about Krishna regularly, and then simultaneously our pride starts to shrink. And we start to realize, I'm insignificant, I need Krishna. And that is the beginning of humility. Wanting to please Sri Krishna all the time, that's another aspect of humility, right? Not just in these things. See, years ago when I've been in corporate life for a long time now, but years ago when I started in my bhakti practice, I used to have this life which is here, which is my bhakti life, and I used to have this life here, which is my corporate life. Right? Any of you relate to that? Right? Whether it's corporate or work life or anything, right? Or student life. However, over time I came to the realization, I don't have two lives. I have one life. It's a life of bhakti. I just do corporate life so I can pay the bills. Right? I just do my work. I'm a husband, or I'm a friend, or a son, or a brother, or whatever. That's part of my roles in life. but my fundamental identity is that I'm a devotee of Shri Krishna's devotees, right? And that click, when it happened, it made my life integrated, as opposed to feeling that bhakti is a part of my life. No, bhakti is our life, and everything else is a part of that life, right? All devotees in the spiritual world have this quality of humility. We hear sometimes about the gopis, and they are in the most intimate relationship with Krishna, and sometimes they even chastise Krishna, right? And Krishna is bowing down to Radharani's lotus feet, and we think, wow, they must not be humble. But Brihad Bhagavatamrita actually tells us that every single devotee, including Srimati Radharani, the topmost devotee, every single devotee in the spiritual world has this quality of humility. And that without humility, there cannot be Sharanagati, there cannot be Bhakti. Even the gopis and Sri Radhika, the topmost of all devotees. This brings us to the lotus feet. Of all the parts of the body, feet are considered the lowest, right? So if we, the feet go to the bathroom, the feet go... What is that? Oh,
What's wrong?
Oh, it's
sounds like Christmas music, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a regular ringtone.
Yeah. Champak, you might want to bring the phone with you because it will probably ring again. People who don't get...
it's the pujari's alarm.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Time to serve lotus feet of
There
They
you
wouldn't
go.
let me dismiss it, so it will go off again.
Okay. So of all the parts of the body, the feet are considered the lowest, right? In the Bhakti tradition, when we touch someone with our feet, we immediately bow down to their feet to put their, touch their feet and put it on our head because we inadvertently offended them, right? We don't touch our beads with our feet, we touch our beads with our hands. Right? We don't touch sacred books with our feet. That's why we don't put any sacred literature on the floor, right? We put it at a respectful place, like a table or on a cloth or something. So feet are considered the lowest, right? When we want to humble ourselves, we bow down towards the feet. If you want to really like you'll see when any great teachers come, everyone's doing that, right? What are we doing? We're bowing down towards their feet, right? And we touch the feet. Now, in the Bhakti tradition, Prabhupada always taught us, don't touch the teacher's feet. So, when Radhanath Swami comes or Satchidananda Swami, don't touch their feet. You can mentally touch their feet or bow down, but don't actually touch them. But that's what, that is the standard etiquette or standard practice in Vedic life. Now, Krishna's every body part is sacred. It's supramundane. It's not mundane, right? Our feet are dirty because, we go somewhere and they get dirty, we have to wash them, right? Krishna's actually, every single body part is sacred. It's not mundane. Each of his body parts can do the role of the others. This sounds incredible, right? How do we know this? Every day, what do we sing when the Darshanarti opens? Brahma Samhita, right? And Brahma Samhita, you can sing looking at this. Angari yasya sakale hriyave dimanti pashanti panti danti shiyam jagati
Shivaya Sadhu Vigrahasya
Govindam Adi So this is what we sing every day. You know what it means? Angani yasya sakalendriya, right? Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure, the underlined line, possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs. So Krishna can actually eat with his nose, hear with his eyes, see with his hands, right? He can walk with his head, right? It literally means any part of his body can do the function of all the other parts. So in other words, Krishna's body is not like our body, right? Can we eat with our nose? Right? We would choke if we did that. And can we hear with our eyes? Jai Shri Radha Mahaprabhu Radha Sundar Bhagwan Ki Jai. Right? So in that sense, we know Krishna's body is Satchidananda. It's made of eternity, bliss and knowledge. It is not a mundane, ordinary body. But we live in the material world and we have to follow the etiquette of the material world, which means that we want to humble ourselves. What do? We bow down to the lotus feet. Right? And that's why Krishna's lotus feet, all the teachers or acharyas in our line, they worship Krishna's lotus feet. Right? We worship all of Krishna, not just his lotus feet, but we approach Krishna through his lotus feet. Even Lakshmi Devi. Who is Lakshmi Devi? She's the goddess of fortune in Vaikuntha. She serves Lord Narayan. And she's so dear to Lord Narayan that Krishna or Narayan has her on his chest as Srivatsa, which is a tuft of little golden hair that's on Narayan's chest. So she's actually already close to Krishna's heart. So that's the closest anyone can be, right? Being close to someone's heart. And yet she chooses, when you go to any place, I don't think there is a picture of Lakshmi Narayan here, but if you see any pictures of Lakshmi Narayan,
There is behind the picture of Shrimati Radharani worshipping the lotus feet.
oh, there you go. Yeah, thank you. But Lakshmi Devi, any picture you see of Lakshmi Devi, she's always seated at Narayan's lotus feet and she's massaging his lotus feet, right? Even though she's close to his heart and she can actually, she's eternally there, right? And she's so dear to Narayan, but she's by his lotus feet. Lakshmi Devi is also the Acharya or the originator of the Sri Sampradaya, one of the authorized traditions in Bhakti, right? And even Lakshmi Devi, she worships Krishna's lotus feet. Even the gopis, who are the topmost devotees, and among the gopis, Sri Radhika, she's the topmost gopi, right? The topmost devotee in all of creation anywhere, right? They worship Krishna's lotus feet. So we approach Krishna through his lotus feet because the path of bhakti is that of following the footsteps of the great souls, right? Mahajano yena gatasapanta, right? That's what we are told, that we follow in the footsteps of the great souls in order to access Krishna's love. Now when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 12 cantos in total, right? Canto 1 and Canto 2 are Krishna's lotus feet. Now Srimad Bhagavatam itself tells us, and our teachers tell us, that Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. Bhagavatam is not a representation of Krishna. Bhagavatam is Krishna in literary form, in book form, right? And how do we approach Bhagavatam? Do we start with the 12th canto or the 10th canto? We start with the first canto, first verse. Because we approach Krishna, that is Bhagavatam, through cantos 1 and 2, which are his lotus feet, right? And lastly, before I get to the next few slides, Prabhupada. All the great teachers in the Bhakti tradition are called Prabhupada, right? We have our Prabhupada here on the altar, right? I mean on the Vyasasana rather. And the meaning of Prabhupada is one who sits at the, Pad means lotus feet, one who sits at the lotus feet of Prabhu, in this case Krishna, right? We call each other Prabhu also because as a matter of etiquette in Bhakti, we don't just say someone's name, we say, Govardhan Lal Prabhu, right? And that means that I'm accepting Govardhan Lal, who's a wonderful devotee of the Lord, as my master, because my position is servant of the servant of Krishna's servants, right? So we say Prabhu to each other, but here the meaning of Prabhupada is not quite that, not the meaning of Prabhu. It means one who sits at the lotus feet of Krishna. And therefore all our teachers are called Prabhupada. And we also have our pranam mantras, right? With that we chant Namo Vishnu Padaya. Vishnu Padaya, meaning one who sits at the lotus feet of Vishnu or Krishna, right? And then we chant the rest of Prabhupada's mantra or our Guru's mantra. Prabhupada also means he or she at whose lotus feet other masters sit, right? So our Prabhupada is that kind of a teacher, that at his lotus feet other great masters also sit, because he's so great, he's so dear to the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? That's the meaning of Prabhupada. Any questions so far? Okay. So I do want to talk about Sri Guru's lotus feet, and then we're going to talk about the effect of worshipping lotus feet of Krishna and Guru. So Guru is the mercy manifestation of Krishna. What do we sing every day in the Guru Ashtakam? Sakshat Haritvena, right? Samasta Shastre. Uktastatha bhav, tatha eva sadbir. Sakshat Haritvena. Sakshat means himself, right? Haritvena. Guru is Sakshat Hari. But that gives rise to a question. Is Guru God? Guru is not God. But Guru is to be worshipped or considered as good as God. And that's what we chant every day. Sakshat Haritvena. Right? Krishna tells Uddhava in the Uddhav Gita, 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Acharyam mam vijaniyan na avamanyata karhechit. One should know the Acharya as myself, Krishna is saying, and never disrespect him in any way. Shveta Shvatara Upanishad 6.23 tells us, this is a very famous verse that you'll hear quoted in different classes, Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasyete kathita hi arthaha prakashanti mahatmana. Unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. And therefore, we worship Guru also, we approach Guru also by worshipping his lotus feet. Right? So it's not just Krishna's lotus feet, but also Guru's lotus feet. What is the effect of taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet? Now, as I said at the beginning of this discussion, that if you just Google the Lord's lotus feet or just lotus feet in Vedabase, you'll come upon tens of thousands of hits. So I've just selected a few. This is from the 3rd canto, 5th chapter, where Maitreya Muni is telling Vidura about the demigods who are beings in the higher planetary systems in the material world, who are praying to Krishna. O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. So it's very apt, we're talking about umbrellas because it's going to rain heavily, right? And if you go out, either you'll need a raincoat or you'll need an umbrella, unless you want to get your hair wet or your body wet, right? So the Lord's lotus feet are like an umbrella protecting the living entities from the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. So that's the first one. Continuing the prayers by the demigods, O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the 3 kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. So this is the second aspect of Krishna's lotus feet, that they are full of knowledge. Remember, we chanted the Brahma Samhita verse that all parts of Krishna's body are interchangeable in terms of function, right? But why we take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. And so Krishna's lotus feet are like an umbrella, they protect us from material miseries. They're also full of knowledge. And the reason we suffer in this material world is because we are ignorant of who we really are. We think I am this person who's meant to enjoy, whereas in reality, we are eternally subordinate to Shri Krishna and we are meant to serve him for his pleasure. So when that knowledge is revealed in our heart, by approaching Krishna's lotus feet, then our miseries and our ignorance is destroyed. Since we have Gaurachandra on the altar, right, I wanted to include a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Gaurachandra Mahaprabhu. Because simply by offering a flower at his lotus feet, even the most ardent materialist becomes a devotee. Very beautiful effect. We'll continue the effect of taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Again, demigods praying to Krishna simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. And on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. So one of the effects of knowledge of the process of bhakti and of the greatness of Krishna is that one develops detachment, right? One of our characteristics in the material world is that we're very attached to what happens to us, right? But Krishna tells Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Matra Sparshas Kaunteya, right? He says, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha, right? Shita Ushna, heat and cold, happiness and miseries, they come and go like the seasons and they follow one another inexorably, right? He who is not disturbed by that is a true transcendentalist, right? So, detachment comes from knowledge of Krishna and by approaching Krishna's lotus feet. We therefore must take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet, the demigods are praying. Continuing those prayers, O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. And therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance. Remembrance of what? Of Sri Krishna or whom, right? Always award of remembrance of Sri Krishna and courage to your devotees. Lord Ram says, there's that famous verse that says that he or she who approaches me and my lotus feet, simply praying for courage and shelter, and they say once that I am yours, Lord Ram, I award them courage. And then by that courage, they're able to transcend the miseries of this material world. And the last one, this is the last verse of this chapter, 23rd chapter of the 4th canto. Whoever with great reverence and adoration regularly reads, chants, and describes the history of Maharaj Prithu's activities will certainly increase unflinching faith and attraction for the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord's lotus feet are the boat by which one can cross the ocean of nations. If you go to the ocean, many of you probably like the beach. If you go to the ocean, it is impossible to swim across it. Forget across it, it's impossible to swim. Maybe if you're a great swimmer, you might swim a mile, maybe 2 miles. But after that, you'll drown, right, if you keep going. So the ocean of material existence is far bigger than the oceans we see in this world. It seems never-ending and we are helpless. But when we take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, it becomes a boat by which we can easily cross that ocean of nations. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, by hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord or the Lord's devotee, one can become firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is the secret, that the glories of taking shelter of the lotus feet, we just saw some prayers, and then this verse and the purport tell us how we can take shelter, how we can approach the lotus feet of the Lord. Simply by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord and the glories of the Lord's devotee. The Lord again and again tells us, whether it's in Bhagavatam or any of the Puranas, that his devotee is more dear to him than he himself, right, than his own self. And he's willing to tolerate insults or ignorance or detachment from himself, but he's not willing to tolerate insults to his devotee. Right? And we see instances, there's that instance where the sages are gathered and they're discussing who is the greatest. And they think that, okay, maybe Brahma is the greatest, Shiva is the greatest, or Vishnu is the greatest, Vishnu or Krishna. And they try to provoke, different demigods are sent, or different sages are sent to approach the Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. And they lose their temper and they realize, okay, this is not the greatest, someone who loses their temper, right? And then Bhrigu Muni is sent to test Lord Vishnu. And what does he go and do? He kicks Lord Vishnu on his chest. Vishnu is lying there being massaged by Lakshmi Devi, his lotus feet are being massaged, and Bhrigu Muni goes there and kicks Vishnu in the chest. And what is Vishnu's reaction? Vishnu is like, oh my God, my chest is hard like steel. Your beautiful soft lotus feet must be hurt. Let me massage them and soothe them. Right? This is Vishnu. And the sages realize, oh my God, and Bhrigu of course realizes, I made a big mistake. A side effect of that, I would advise you never to try and kick the Lord's chest or any part of his body. But this is an illustrative example. And Lakshmi Devi, who's the goddess of fortune, she gets very upset because, the Lord is very unruffled and he's like, that's okay, no problem, I got kicked. The Brahmanas are so great, they're always chanting my glories. So I'll forgive Bhrigu Muni. But Lakshmi gets really upset with him and she says, because of the act you have done, the Brahmanas of this world will always be poor. I will never bestow my material benedictions upon them, right? Because she got really upset. But this is Vishnu or Krishna's reaction to being insulted or troubled himself. But then we hear about Ambarish Maharaj, he's done a long fast and he's about to break it. It's Ekadashi. And Durvasa Muni comes and he says, I'll be back. So Ambarish, there's a certain time for breaking the fast for it to be complete. So Ambarish is waiting for Durvasa to come back from his bath, but Durvasa gets lost in his bath, and he doesn't come back in time. So Ambarish asks his advisors, what should I do? Because if I don't break this fast, it's going to be worthless. So they say, well, you cannot eat because you're waiting for your elevated guest to come back. So, but if you drink one sip of water, like one drop of water, it'll be considered you've broken that fast because he was doing nirjal or no food or drink. It'll be considered like you've broken the fast, but because it's a drop of water, it'll not actually be breaking the fast. So he does that. Durvasa comes back and realizes that Ambarish broke his fast and he ate before me, or he broke his fast before me. He gets very upset. And people who get angry, they lose their mind really. And Durvasa forgot that Ambarish is actually one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. He was so upset, he took a strand of hair from his head, dashed it to the ground, and out came a gigantic, horrific creature that was meant to kill Ambarish Maharaj. And as soon as that happened, Krishna from the spiritual world sent his Sudarshan Chakra, his disc, to protect Ambarish Maharaj. And he cut off the head of that demon that had been created by Durvasa. And that Sudarshan Chakra started chasing Durvasa for the offense of offending Ambarish Maharaj. And Durvasa went through all the worlds looking for shelter. All the great personalities of this world, Shiva, Brahma, they all said, we cannot protect you. If Vishnu is after you, I'm sorry, we can't do anything. We're subservient to Vishnu, right? He even goes to Vishnu, and you know what Vishnu tells him? I'm powerless. I cannot call back my own chakra. Only my devotee, if he forgives you, he can call on that chakra. And then Durvasa goes and falls at Ambarish Maharaj's lotus feet again, right? And says, I made a grave mistake, please forgive me. And devotee is always forgiving, never holds any grudges. Ambarish said, I'm not upset, that's okay, and then the chakra goes off, right? So that's the power of the devotee. So we shouldn't think that, well, I'll bow down to Krishna, but devotees are okay, I'm going to just do that. But we should really be in a mood of service to the devotees all the time. And by hearing their glories, when you hear Prabhupada's glories, for example, it has the same effect as if we are hearing Krishna's glories. Because the devotee's life is never divorced from the Lord. So when you hear the devotee's glories, you're hearing the Lord's glories. So, Gopi Geet, we'll sing this together. It's up on the screen, people can see, right? Pranatatehi nam papakarshanam Trinacharanugam Sriniketanam Fanifanarpitam Te Padambujam Krinukucheshuna Krindirishayam. Your lotus feet, they are singing to Krishna. Destroy the past sins of all embodied souls who surrender to them. Those feet follow after the cows in the pastures and on the eternal abode of the goddess of fortune. Since you once put those feet on the hoods of the great serpent Kaliya, Fani Fanarpitam, please place them upon our breasts and tear away the lust in our hearts. So this is another effect of embracing the lotus feet of the Lord in our hearts. So to summarize, why are the Lord's feet called lotus feet? We talked about that he never goes anywhere without his spiritual world accompanying him. And in the spiritual world, which is shaped like the world of a lotus, right? He's always stepping on the world of a lotus. And his feet are above the muck and mundaneness of the material world. So they are lotus feet. We talked about why we should approach Krishna's lotus feet. We talked about humility being the foundational principle of Sharanagati or surrender, and Sharanagati, the 6 limbs, are the foundational principle of bhakti. We cannot pretend to be devotees unless we have Sharanagati in our hearts and we've really taken shelter of Krishna. We talked about how to approach Krishna's lotus feet by hearing and chanting about the lotus feet of the Lord and the glories of the devotee and the glories of Krishna. We talked about Sri Guru's lotus feet being as good and as valuable as Sri Krishna's lotus feet. We talked about the effect of approaching Krishna's lotus feet in the prayers we just saw. So that was a summary. And then I did promise we should end with at least one story, right? And I talked about these stories. We don't have time for all of these. But Krishna stealing butter, right? Such a charming story. We just finished Kartik, the month of Kartik, where we heard about Mother Yashoda boiling beautiful milk that she had personally, milked the cows for. Those cows were the most select of the 900,000 cows that Nanda Maharaj had, and they were purely meant for Krishna's service and pleasure, making sweets and butter and all that. The milk was about to boil over, so she was feeding Krishna, who was 2 years old and 2 months at that time, 2 years and 2 months, and she's feeding him at her breast, and she hears the milk boiling. And if you boil milk, you can hear it like that, right? And so she puts Krishna down and runs to get the milk off the stove, and Krishna gets angry. And it's actually, Krishna doesn't get angry. Everything he does is meant to intensify the love of his devotees. But he then stealthily runs and goes to where the butter is kept, up above, high above, because he's in the habit of constantly getting into the stores of butter and yogurt and eating them. And so he breaks it, the butter comes down, he eats it, he smears it all over his face, the butter is lying on the ground, and Mother Yashoda comes looking for him after the milk has been taken off the stove, and she's like following the footsteps of Krishna through the house because he stepped in the butter, and Krishna's buttery footsteps are all over the house, and then she finally catches him, right? That's the beginning of Damodar Leela. So it's such a beautiful meditation. We can always meditate on this because just as Krishna stole the butter, we can pray and we can visualize those buttery footprints in our heart, and we can pray to Krishna, Muralidhar, please come and steal my heart. I want to make my heart so soft like butter that you will be tempted to come, break open the store, where this butter is inside my heart, and come and steal it, right? That's the meditation. We can do it when we are chanting our rounds, when we are chanting kirtan, right? It's such a beautiful meditation. I'll take the third one, Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kaliya the serpent. Kaliya was a very vicious and evil serpent who would not allow any living entity to live in the waters of the Yamuna where he had taken up residence. And in fact, his fumes were so poisonous, it's described, that birds flying high overhead would drop dead just by smelling the fumes emanating from that stretch of the water. And so, the cows, everyone else, and the gopas and the gopis, they would want to use that water, but they couldn't. And so Krishna realized, I need to teach him a lesson. Now, Krishna kills many demons, but he didn't kill Kaliya. You know why that is? Because Kaliya was married to the Nagapatnis, or the wives. He had multiple wives. He was married to the Nagapatnis who were actually great devotees of Krishna. So this is the effect of being dear to someone who is dear to Krishna. So if you can simply, this is the whole process of bhakti. Why we approach the devotees? Because we know devotees are dear to Krishna. And if we become dear to the devotees, whether it's any of us here, or it's our spiritual master or Prabhupada, we become dear to them, then we become dear to Krishna, right? And so Krishna did not kill Kaliya, he just danced on the hoods of Kaliya, and he completely destroyed the poison that was in his heart. Kaliya actually became a devotee, but Krishna told him, for all your offenses here, I'm banishing you, and he actually was banished to what is today known as Fiji, so to that land. So I'll pause here, and because there are many stories, and we can talk about Krishna's lotus feet forever. We have to stop, right, in a minute or two?
Yeah, we have 1 minute.
Okay. So, I don't know if there are any questions, comments, corrections.
Anyone want to share anything?
quickly talk about Ram stepping on a Halya?
Sure.
Okay, because right now I'm reading Ramayana, so I'm like every day I go to bed, I read Ramayana at night. So every day I go to bed and then I'm dreaming of Lord Ram all night.
Wow.
And the day, and not literally, I hope, I wish, but it's like it's full in day. And so Ram stepping on Ahalya, Ahalya was a great chaste woman from long ago, and she was married to Gautama Rishi. But she was so beautiful, she was actually the most beautiful. And Indra wanted her sexually. So he came disguised as her own husband when her husband was away and had union with her. And she also realized that Indra, it's not my husband, but she was overcome by lust. And for that she was cursed by her husband to eternally become a stone. And when she pleaded with him, there was a momentary lapse, please forgive me. He said, you'll be released when Lord Ram steps on you. And then Lord Ram came with his brother Lakshman and their Guru Vishwamitra. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
And he stepped on that stone, and out she came, purified and effulgent. So that's the story of Hare
Bye.
Krishna.
Thank you so much, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu ki jai. So now we'll now have Arti. We can just move these red cushions and everyone come forward and we'll dance and sing together.
Thank you for the lovely class.
Namo Vishnu
Prem se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Raghunath Puri Dham Ki Anandamaya Ki Anandamaya Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Sravana. It was so lovely having you all. We have this every week. Please come, except
we won't have it on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve because our team will be Christmasing and New Year's Eve. So we won't have it, but then we'll start back up the first week of January, and we will have it probably unbroken until Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve next year. So yes, please come back. We also have this coming Friday, which is December 22nd, Gita Jayanti, the day that Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and we'll be having a special program in the evening for that. So please come for that. Please stay. We have lunch served for you all in the back. Stay and share prasadam with everyone, and thank you so much. And big thanks to our production team headed by Nick and Jenna and Akeshwara. We have an amazing team. Please thank them when you take prasadam. They'll be serving you prasadam because it's because of them that we have this program running every week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.